The first day of autumn has come and gone, and you know what that means, right? Darning season. I have done a couple of darning videos in the past, but for this video I thought perhaps we would explore how Victorians did their darning, specifically as it has been described in Agnes Walker's book Manual of Needlework and Cutting Out. For this recipe you will need a pair of socks to be darned, some wool yarn to darn with. I'm using a contrasting thread so you can see what I'm doing. A darner. I don't have a suitable Victorian darner, which was shaped more like a spoon, but my darning mushroom can have its head screwed off and will work for this purpose. A pair of snips, our trusty thimble, and a needle to darn with. I like to use sharp embroidery needles because I find the blunt darning needles really get stuck and struggle to get through anything as soon as it gets felted, so I prefer sharp, but you can do what you please. Okay, so first off, Madame Walker is reminding us of the first rule in darning, which is never wait for a hole. So we've already failed the first lesson, but moving on then. Madame Walker then instructs us to cut any broken threads close to the hole to make a clean finish, which I must admit goes against everything I usually do when darning, which is to try to keep as much of the original wool from the sock in the darn so that it stays nice and strong, but I do understand that this will give us a cleaner finish. Next we are to turn our sock inside out. Now the second step and the first step to the actual darning, Madame Walker instructs us to darn what is the weak spots around about the hole, because where there is a hole there's usually a reason for that, and the areas around it would have been receiving similar wear and tear and is probably not too far off from breaking themselves. But you are to leave small loops here because they might shrink in the wash, and if they do and pull too much on your fabric, you will be left with not a very good result. She also instructs us to work in an octagonal shape because you're always to avoid any sharp edges. Because similarly, if there are any sharp edges, it is very easy for a new hole or wear to occur. We are also trying to catch the wrong side of our knitting stitches, or the purl edges, so that as little of this as possible is showing to the right side. And this is the common method for darning a sock, which is the first thing the pupils learn, which seems rather fitting because it's always interesting to be deciphering the Victorian language in these instructional manual. And the most important thing as you reach the hole, which was surprisingly difficult to film, is that as you reach the hole you need to make sure that your thread passes through each of the knitting loops that have been broken above and below, so that you are holding the knitting in place and making sure that it doesn't break or unravel any further. So as you can see here, this white thread is going under and through this loop to stop it from going anywhere else. And of course our little darner is helping us so that the hole does not contract as we're passing over it, and we don't add any new tension or change the size of the sock. And the next step is where we go, interestingly you only go across the hole from the octagon, but now you're passing over only the darning threads as you're working. Over one and under one. so on. So now you're not working with the original fabric of the sock at all. You're just going through and working with what you've recently added through your darning. And there, as far as I can tell at least, is how the Victorians were taught to darn a hole using the common method. As you can see, the instructions say actually not to cross all the way up here to where we were strengthening the seam, just sort of close to the hole. And let's see what it looks like on the outside. I don't think I will have hidden all of it. Huh, that's not too bad, is it? Especially for such a quick and simple darn. I thought for sure I'd poked through a lot more here, but it seems this method is a little bit sturdier than we thought, so yeah. Now for our second darning experiment, I thought perhaps we would try our hand at a bit of Swiss darning, which is the more advanced darning method in the book and recommended for finer stockings and more detailed work. So again, we're sitting here with our stocking. We are trying to undo just a few loops from the wear so that we can rediscover where all the original loops were, where all the knitting stitches were in the original, so that we can use those, which is even more important in Swiss darning than in other darning, because we are trying to recreate the original stitches or something that looks like it. And unlike the common darning method, this method is worked from the front. So first, let's just go through and fasten our little needle here. And then we are going through the first stitch and up. No, the first one and up and then down again through the next one and up. Why am I not using my darning mushroom so that we can see what we're doing here? And finding all the original stitches, not to tighten, of course, because we are darning, not changing the size, but in order to have a base layer to work our Swiss darning into. So now you will have some triangular stitches, and yeah, we're just going to imitate what we're seeing. So I hope you're able to see this, but I'm always taking my needle and going under two of my threads, but I'm always taking one step back, so it becomes this lattice work. Ideally, it would supersede the need for the support threads. And it's not a technique I'm particularly good at, so it always looks a little bit wonky, but now this, as you can see, is a more time-consuming darn. It's a more elaborate darn. It's not generally one that I go for, so I don't have the practice I need to make this look pretty. I'm also curious to see if it's a less sturdy darn, just because we haven't gone all out to the edges like with the other one. But when you're really good at it, you can really make it look like the original knit, which is really cool. But it does require a fair bit of practice, and you don't have the extra strengthening layers on the inside like we saw with the common darning method. Here there's really just the hole, and when the weak areas would have to be cut off and redone in their entirety. I don't think Madam Walker would give me top marks for this effort. It is not very neat, but it gets the job done. So there you have our two different Victorian darning methods. Are you going to use any of them on your clothes this cold season? Please let me know, and hopefully I'll see you soon with some a bit more elaborate content. Until next time!